and I've been tackling this conversation with people of all different stripes from the various corners of the field service world, both geographically, but from industry, from academia, and from both sides of the coin, in terms of talking with solution providers like yourselves and people, practitioners in the industry. And one of the things I find is we need to reframe a little bit what these conversations mean, the servitization conversation means, because there's very, very many different interpretations. And that was something that came through a little bit. But also, we need to then reframe that conversation internally first, so we can take it externally. I'll just once again go through the quotes on the screen. So Christo is the director for field and workshop services for Autotech in the mining and aggregate sector. We talk about bundling our offering. So in terms of servitization, it has come down to long-term service agreements, which may include consignment stock, service level agreements, partial or full presence on site, 24-hour call services, and so forth. For us, that is as far as we're going to go in terms of servitization. Martin Winchheimer, Global Aftermarket Sales Director at Howden. Even if the official strategy is to prioritize aftermarket at the top level of the store, that is the story, you also need to see what's happening 2 layers down in the organization, which is where the day-to-day decisions are being made. Strategy does not land on its own. It's not always understood by the top. What is needed to implement the vision to generate more aftermarket business. And again, Martin's speaking from a number of collective kind of conversations he'd had around this as well. It was a pretty deep conversation that we went into quite a lot of depth in this one, Coen. Again, it was the one that you were there with me. I mean, and it's also something one of the things I really wanted to bring you in first on this conversation with is you've got direct experience at probably the highest level in your life pre-ServiceMax of a huge servitized implementation. Maybe you want to speak to broadly about the session and also give us a little bit of insight into the work you did around that, and kind of give us that overview, if you could.
Well, again, this story is just like the previous comment. It starts with the voice of the customer. I think that if we see that the customers are getting more mature and more demanding, we see that apart from buying a product or buying the services, more and more customers, they simply want to have the output or the value of a product. And I can really see Christo's comment out there, because it takes two. It takes the field service organization, so it takes Autotech themselves to make a conscious decisions. How far do we want to go in the maturity of our service offerings? And that has, of course, must have a relationship with the maturity of the customers. Because it would be a waste of time if they would invest in servitization offerings, whereas the customers are not going to buy them, or the other way around. So it takes two to do that. And I think in every vertical, in every market, every customer out there has their own dynamics in the market, and they can really tap into that. So looking at the example of Howden, indeed, it takes multiple levels. So going back to the example of my previous employer, indeed, we were starting to see and looking at the voice of the customer. And we were selling safety and security systems. So that could be something simple as a camera system, a security camera system. Now, the customer can buy a bunch of security cameras and they can maintain the stuff themselves. I can sell those cameras, and I can sell associated maintenance contracts with them. And what I will do is, over the lifespan of the system, I would ensure that you have camera feeds. But we saw that more and more customers said, well, especially if you look at an airport, how many security cameras are there in an airport? A couple of thousand. Try to imagine the control desk where somebody is looking at thousands of camera feeds. That's not what we want. Customers want to have the insights. They only want to see the feeds of the cameras which need actionable items. So if you look at what customers really need, you can really start selling those new types of services. And we had the privilege to have a number of customers who really valued that type of service, whereas another bunch of customers simply said, just sell me the cameras. It's a mixed story. So it's a mixed story. So we, of course, we looked at the voice of the customer and said, because we had some very large launching customers, it was worthwhile doing the investment of a servitized service offering. But that investment, we could not monetize it for a great range of customers who simply wanted to buy a commodity. So we had a hybrid model.
What was there? Just a quick aside before we move on to the next slide, Kim. Was there the customers that were right for that servitized business model? Were
Yep.
they necessarily your key customers, your largest customers, or was there a mix? Because that's something that I often think about. Is this customer selection for organizations? And I've seen organizations do it very well. I've seen organizations do everything well and still not get that kind of buy-in. Was it how? Yeah, talk to us about the kind of the profile a little bit of the kind of customers.
Initially, it were big customers who were really focusing on their own core business. So, for instance, if you look at an airport, their core business is to manage all the passenger traffic in it, and they don't really care about the make and the model and the technology of a security system. So, for such a customer, it was easy to elevate the conversation to an outcome-based service. On the other hand, if I look at the Middle East, in the Middle East, there you see a lot of companies really bypassing an entire level of service offerings. They want to have state-of-the-art stuff. And if a sheikh builds an airport or a water treatment plant or a skyscraper, they say, we don't care about those things, so sell me the outcome. But on the other hand, in the more traditional markets, well, maybe if I look, for instance, in the US, if we go to a Walmart is buying a security system because they want to monitor things. But now you see that also Walmart is moving up the scale because they say, well, if we have those camera feeds, can we use those camera feeds with intelligence to see what buying behavior of customers is? That goes way beyond the security camera use case, and you start using the same kind of cameras for a completely different purpose. And then I think the 2.5 million we saw in an earlier slide, if you can start monetizing that type of data, you have a similar hardware investiture, and you can monetize them multiple different ways.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it echoes Kieran's point as well.